Today at Waterworld Mermaids, we are joined by the fabulous Kieran Kramer. Kieran is a double Rita finalist and a USA Today bestselling author of lighthearted Regency historical romance for St. Martin's Press. In addition to writing wonderful, fun, engaging stories with memorable characters, Kieran is a former CIA employee, a journalist, and an English teacher who enjoys karaoke. And I've had the privilege of hearing her sing, and she's pretty fabulous and has appeared on multiple game shows. So, thanks for joining us today here at Waterworld Mermaids. So tell us about yourself.
Okay, well, I obviously like cats because I have one on my lap right now. Her name's June.
Hi, June.
And she has a brother named Benny, and they're both cats that were found on the side of the road when they were 4 months old, and they were taken to a no-kill pet shelter. And so they're now 3.5, and they don't like to be picked up, because I think they were feral cats for so long, but they love to crawl in my lap. So it's a special occasion when June crawls onto my lap, but once I try to pick her up, she will jump and go away. So I'm a pet person, I have a dog, and I even have a family with real people. I have Jack, who's a new high schooler, and I've got 2 kids in college, and then I have my wonderful husband, Chuck. He's a naval commander in the reserves, and he works for the government, and we've been married 23 years.
Wow. Congratulations. It takes a lot of work to be married for 23 years.
Thanks. Yes, it does. But it's been great. It's been worth it. So anyway, that's my basic background. I live in the South. I grew up in the low country of South Carolina, where I am right now.
I love low country South Carolina.
Oh, thank you so much. I do too. I grew up on the banks of Bohicket Creek in the mud and tidal pools and dolphins jumping by and all that kind of stuff. And my dad built our house on this old plantation property. We were transplants. You can tell that I wasn't born in South Carolina, but I've lived in the South all my life. My parents are from New York, so I never got a Southern accent. So I can put one on real good when I'm with my friends who are really Southern. And so I had a very unusual childhood, clearing the land with machetes when I was 11 and 12, making huge bonfires of all the debris, and my dad building our house, but first tearing down this old plantation house that was beyond repair because it had been so vandalized. And we took all the old clay bricks, which are gorgeous. If you've ever seen old bricks, the beautiful swirls of color.
Oh, yeah, we used to live in South Carolina, and there are some gorgeous properties down there.
And we had to clean all those bricks one by one with a chisel. I wore goggles. I was 11, 12, and 13, squatting on my haunches next to a huge brick pile with a chisel and a hammer, and taking off the mortar on the sides of the plaster on the sides of these bricks. And so we cleaned them all, and Dad built this huge fireplace in the kitchen floor, and we used the old beams from the plantation house in our house. And so it's a real kind of homestead story, and even though we're on the East Coast, it felt like we were homesteading because I lived in a trailer for 5 years. Dad said it was going to be 6 months, but he had never built a house before, and he built all of it, including the wiring, the plumbing, and all that. So it took longer than we thought.
Sweetie, even if you had had a contractor, it would have taken more than 6 months.
Yeah. But anyway, that's my basic background. And then I wound up going to the College of Charleston, right here in South Carolina, right here in my town. And my junior year I spent in Scotland because I had to get away. And my junior year in Scotland, I dated a guy who played rugby and wore a kilt, and he was very Scottish Stuart. I dated him the whole year, and I never left. All the other Americans would go away after a semester, or I don't know, they always acted like tourists, but I didn't. I was fully integrated. I worked in a pub after class and traveled around Scotland. And on my breaks, I didn't go to Europe like everybody else. I stayed there. The farthest I went was Ireland because my mom's family's from Ireland, and we actually have a farm Galway, in a little town called Ballinasloe, where my two grandparents met and married. So I could get an Irish passport if I wanted to, and I just might.
That is awesome. And that had to have influenced you with your writing. Do you remember, how long have you been writing? What originally sparked your interest in writing?
Well, the thing that sparked my interest in writing was reading, because I'm an avid reader and have been all my life. My whole family are we're just only about books. Like if you go to my parents' house and you stand in the living room and you look up, you'll look up at a library above you that is shelves and shelves all around you of books. And so I grew up reading constantly. And I would read in my favorite trees. I would read in my closet. And when I say I read in my closet, what I mean is I still remember reading the Little Princess and falling in love with that story, and how the little girl had to live in the attic when she was banned there by the evil headmistress of the school. So I made my closet into that attic, and I pretended I was the little princess, and I would sit in there and I'd read, and that, I do that off and on for, I guess between ages 9 through 11 or 12. Not just pretending I was a little princess, but I liked having my own space because there were 7 kids born in 9 years.
Wow, that's a big family. Where do you fit in that 7 kids?
Number 6. And so my dad and mom, we lived in military housing most of the time, and that's really not too big when you have that many kids.
No, so, it's not.
Story I ever wrote was during that closet phase, my closet tree phase, and I remember writing a little children's book about a baseball named Tom Newley, and he had fallen out of his owner's mitt, and he rolled away, and he couldn't find his way back home. So the whole story was about Tom Newley finding his way back home, and one day a baseball player, like on the Yankees, hit Tom into the stands. He was a home run. And it was a home run because he saw his little boy out in the stands, and the little boy caught him. So he was back. But
you were a natural. You had an entire arc right there.
Well, I wasn't like this huge baseball, but I did put that story inside a guitar, between the strings of a guitar, because I didn't want anyone to take it or see it or trash it or anything. And every once in a while, I'd go by the guitar and I'd pick it up and shake it, and nobody knew it was in there. So I think that was my first inkling that I wanted to be a storyteller, and I was literally preserving my story, and that was preserving my dream. But it was years and years after I was 11 years old that I really started thinking about writing, and that's when I was a young mom, staying at home with my husband in the Navy, deployed, and I had little babies rolling around on the floor, and I needed something to do. So I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to be a writer. Why don't I give it a shot? So I did.
So tell me, what authors influenced you most when you were growing up to help you kind of formulate this dream that you wanted to write?
Well, let's just say my favorite authors are my biggest influence, and I would say they're all very character-driven, all my favorite authors. And I think, honestly, all good authors are. I know that's a generalization. I know plot is incredibly important. It has to be riveting, and your pacing has to be right, your tension, all that kind of stuff. But for me, it's all about character. So starting from the time I was little, I'd say Laura Ingalls Wilder was a huge influence on me. Her characters are incredibly memorable. So are Beverly Cleary's. Yeah. Totally. And then getting into the romance phase, that started with Beverly Cleary when I read 15, and The Luckiest Girl when I was probably 12-ish. And then I got into Victoria Holt, and that kind of led me to romance, because I really loved the love story and the tension there. And her settings were incredibly memorable. I remember thinking that. And then as I got older, Jane Austen, of course, with Pride and Prejudice, and Charles Dickens was a huge favorite because of characters, and Mark Twain was a huge favorite and Betty Smith with A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Her world building was amazing. And then I have to say, my all-time favorite would be To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee. What memorable characters she created.
Yeah.
But so much more than that. The themes, the world building. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a former English teacher, so I'm totally passionate about reading and writing. And as a teacher with my students, I was just so gung ho about them writing, and they really appreciated that because a lot of English teachers don't emphasize writing that much. And I would go to my kids' teachers in high school and I'd say, I want to see the writing portfolio. And inevitably, I felt they needed more. But then again, I'm biased because I love writing. But I think everybody has a story to tell. You don't need to have perfect grammar. You don't need to have perfect plot structure. You have a story to tell. Everyone has a voice. And so if I ever go back to teach writing to people who might be a little afraid of writing, maybe it'll be an adult writing class, or I'll get there with the cynical high school students and kind of uncover or unpeel some layers with them and get them back to feeling comfortable with writing. Because the saddest thing about writing is that we all want to write when we're little, just like we all want to draw pictures. But as we get older, we get more scared to do it. And we close up and we're afraid to be who we really are. So I have to say, if I do have a gift, it would be teaching or conveying the passion I feel about writing and reading to other people. So I eventually would go back to that in some way. And one way could be that I write a young adult novel or middle school reader, something like that. To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee. What memorable characters she created.
Yeah.
But so much more than that. The themes, the world building. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a former English teacher, so I'm totally passionate about reading and writing. And as a teacher with my students, I was just so gung ho about them writing, and they really appreciated that because a lot of English teachers don't emphasize writing that much. And I would go to my kids' teachers in high school and I'd say, I want to see the writing portfolio. And inevitably, I felt they needed more. But then again, I'm biased because I love writing. But I think everybody has a story to tell. You don't need to have perfect grammar. You don't need to have perfect plot structure. You have a story to tell. Everyone has a voice. And so if I ever go back to teach writing to people who might be a little afraid of writing, maybe it'll be an adult writing class, or I'll get there with the cynical high school students and kind of uncover or unpeel some layers with them and get them back to feeling comfortable with writing. Because the saddest thing about writing is that we all want to write when we're little, just like we all want to draw pictures. But as we get older, we get more scared to do it. And we close up and we're afraid to be who we really are. So I have to say, if I do have a gift, it would be teaching or conveying the passion I feel about writing and reading to other people. So I eventually would go back to that in some way. And one way could be that I write a young adult novel or middle school reader, something like that.